the end, Tim, zebra mussels. This is a big
Yeah.
thing for us in Minnesota, right?
Yep.
And
It
I
is.
will, the big thing why it's big to us is because I will go do our history. So if you don't know, welcome to the history part of fishing and podcasting and stuff like that.
Welcome.
Don't get bored the more you know. We're going to try to make this fun. We always do. And if this is your first time because you found us with the Bassmaster episode, then hell yeah, man. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel
Dude,
down the
I
road
was
and back
gonna
again.
say, what's up, friends? Oh, we are on the same page. You're
So anyways, I wanted to say that this totally made sense why all of a sudden we're super aware of why it's part of our fishing zeitgeist, why it's part of our Minnesota water experience, I guess. I don't know how else to really put that. And it is because they were first discovered up in the Great Lakes in 88. They confirmed them in Duluth
really,
in 89.
dude. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I would have expected it further back than
back.
that.
Yeah. Which
They
is
that's when my sister was born.
yeah.
Like that's her birth year.
Uh-huh.
So that's crazy to think about. Like
Right.
when she was born was
The
like
first
they've
time
just
they've discovered them.
and they've just always been a thing as far as I know.
Right.
Like it just so that's weird to think like, oh, they've always been a thing as far as we knew, but
Right.
also like we just made the cut. Like
Yeah.
we were coming up as they were coming up.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying is makes perfect sense. Like once you know that just the year of the history, you're just like, well, that makes
Yeah.
a lot of damn sense then. It's like
Oh,
that's why they've always been part of our like view. They've always been in our view when it comes to
yeah.
fishing, and we've
Yeah.
always been hearing about them. But it also explains like I don't know about you, but I never learned from them from my uncles. I never learned from my dad like fishing in the 90s and stuff like that. Like nobody, like anybody I went fishing with in the early 90s as a little kid, they didn't really say like, oh, make sure to drain the boat and all that shit like that. We were
Oh,
worried about
yeah.
milfoil.
Right. Well, I mean, like it was the same thing was like draining the boat because like the weeds and stuff. So I learned that from my dad because we would go to like different lakes every once in a while,
Sure.
but never any that had zebra mussels because zebra mussels I think are still relatively rare. I think milfoil's on more lakes than zebra mussels, but I might be wrong.
Probably. Yeah.
But I also think that some people like a lot of people say that there's milfoil on lakes when there's not. There's just like thick weeds on some, so you just have like old
Right.
folks that are just like, it's milfoils running amok, and it's just like that's just real dense weed cover, It's just like that's
Yep,
not
yep.
milfoil, like that just happens. Thick weeds happen. But I remember when I was a kid that like my dad would talk about how we would have to drain everything, but we never really talked about zebra mussels until we went up to Mille Lacs
Mm.
where my grandparents they had a second trailer house. They had like their
Oh,
own
yep.
in the same town that my parents grew up in, and then they had one in Garrison, which is like straight across the street from Mille Lacs. Like
Yep.
there's Mille Lacs, a road, and then they had a second trailer. So we would go up there sometimes
Okay.
and we would walk, and then I heard all about the zebra mussels there. Like they have zebra mussels, and then we would look close, and there'd just be like these little tiny shells on everything. Like you picked up a rock, and they'd just be covered with these little tiny shells. You're
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? They're like, yeah, those are zebra mussels, and I never understood
Mhm.
what the problem was. I'm like, yeah, I mean, we don't want
Right.
all these shells, but is it that big of a deal? And then
Right.
it gets out of control. They're
Oh yeah.
invasive for a reason.
We're about to.
They get on everything.
Yeah, dude. It was crazy when I was doing the research for this, which by the way, shout out to National Park Service and the Minnesota DNR. Minnesota DNR had a big old section on it. Hit on Google right away. I don't know if it's because I'm in Minnesota or if it's because it's a fucking big problem up here. And it's actually a big problem up here
Yeah.
and Canada. like they had a map on the Minnesota DNR
Yeah.
article,
Okay.
and yeah, there was a lot in Canada, and it's because these zebra mussels, they're native to the Caspian and the Black Sea over in Russia, Ukraine area.
Okay.
And so that's how they got here. They just piggyback on those ships, you know, they'd get filled up in those
Oh,
ships.
yeah.
Those ships would
Okay.
come over here, dump their water for water levels, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, that's why it was Great Lakes in 88, confirmed in Duluth in 89. And the next thing you know, they're all over the Mississippi. They're in Canada. They made it to the West Coast now. It's like, oh shit. Yeah.
Fucking Russians.
They did it on purpose.
Yeah.
They did it on purpose.
You can't be bringing over zebra mussels. What do you care about zebra mussels? Tiny little shells gonna get in your leg. Ooh, boo boo. Take it.
But it was crazy to see the damage. I mean, okay, there was a lot of things, a lot of damage that they could do, I guess. But the thing that you said, like there's these little things all over. So they're small, right?
Yes, they're little,
They're
yeah.
like a thumbnail, maybe not even a thumbnail big. They're
No, smaller than that.
yeah. It says
A lot of
quarter
them,
inch
I
to an
would
inch
say,
and a half long. They can get.
yeah, dude. Quarter inch is not. That's like half of your pinky nail. A quarter inch is like half of your pinky nail.
Right.
That's not large.
No. No,
No.
not at all. And the thing is that, like you said, there's just so many of them. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it when there was a photo, and
Oh yeah.
they're because what they do is they float around and and then they stick. And we'll
Yes.
get into the floating around and all the baby stage and all that shit, but then they stick to something.
Yeah.
But when they do that, they're in like swarms essentially. They'll stick to the
Mm.
local mussels.
Oh yeah. They stick to everything. Yeah. If it's a rock, if it's another shell, if it like a lot of them stick to boats and stuff. That's how they get transferred. Just like you were
Oh
talking
yeah.
about with the ships, it was all
Yeah,
over the ship,
right.
and I'm sure a ship has plenty of them.
Oh
So
god. I didn't even think about I'm laughing because I didn't think about that. Like, think of the amount of water that a ship is carrying to, you know, level
right.
itself out and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden just dumping it out. Like, how many could be in there? Oh my god. It's
Dude,
not
I'm
even a
thinking just the
small
bottom of
pond.
the.
It's like a
I'm sure
small
it's
lake that could be fit in a ship.
yeah. Well, not only that, I'm assuming that just along the bottom of the ship, like
Oh,
the
right.
whole
Just
ship was
they
just
just
covered in them.
stuck to the ship and hitched a ride,
Yeah,
for
and then
sure.
I don't know how it works if they just decide to unlatch or whatever. All I know about them for sure is that they make water really clear. Like if you know there's zebra mussels that are going there, like if you're going to fish a lake that has zebra mussels on it,
Oh, yeah.
bring natural colored baits because that
Yes.
water is
Let's
going to be
save that. Let's
clear.
save that for later because I have like a whole section on it, and I don't wanna kill your I don't wanna kill your momentum. So, what I'm gonna try to keep your momentum going here by saying, uh, there these are a prohibited invasive species, to go back to what we were talking about on the fishing with the jellyfish,
Yeah.
because these things are destructive, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, prohibited invasive species, that is what these are called specifically. So again, we still have this word invasive species floating around like, okay, what does that mean exactly? But prohibited is the key word here for me. It's literally a misdemeanor in Minnesota to possess, import, purchase, transport, introduce, except for under a permit, and disposal and control all of this stuff. It's illegal. Like you can't fuck with them whatsoever. It's a misdemeanor. Or sorry, okay. Or introduce this species except for under a permit for disposal, and what that disposal, control, research, or education. So you can't Like, you can't mess with them, is basically
Yeah.
what it is. You have to have a permit to dispose of these things. You have to
Dude,
have a permit to do control efforts for these things, like,
there's a lot of weird stuff like that.
oh, really?
Like, yeah, like if you have like lakeshore or whatever and you have weeds, like your weeds are super thick and you want to clear it off, you got to like clear off some lakeshore or whatever, you got to get permits to do almost everything.
Really?
Yeah, you want to clear out some weeds, you got to get permits. I think you can get those like lake rakes or whatever they're called and like go chop the weeds and cut some of that stuff out. But
Okay.
if you want to try to put any chemicals in the water that kill the
Sure.
weeds in your area, or you want to go and do like pretty much anything, you have to
Yeah.
have a permit. So I could see how they would, be like, you have to be allowed to do this because we don't. I would assume that's part of their efforts to be
Mhm.
like, we can't just have, you know, your cousin Cletus come down with his freaking, I got one of these spades from the local Walmart and I'm going to scrape off all the stuff that's on your dock and I'll
Ah,
get rid of it. I'll go throw it out. And, and it's just like,
right.
well, we can't
Throw it in
trust
the
that that
river.
idiot's not going to go to the next lake and try to do the same stuff with the same shovel, where it's just like,
Right.
we need to know that you know what you're doing before you mess with any of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Good point. That really hits home. That totally has to be the reason, because I was just like, disposal, huh?
Yeah.
But you're making the perfectly good point is, if you're living on the beach, living on a lake that has zebra mussels, these fuckers are probably all over your dock, and disposing of them, you have to sort of get a little bit of an education and a training on them, like knowing that these goddamn things can release 100 to 500,000 eggs by one single female. Y- y- If you didn't know
Dang.
that, you wouldn't treat this thing special,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like, again,
And maybe it even has something to do with their like birthing cycle like that too.
sure,
Where like the female might not release its eggs until it's like prompted to or whatever, and you start scraping them off, you're automatically gonna release like
making
hell.
really, yeah, I
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know for sure if that's
I
the
don't know
case, but
either.
you make a really good point, is that, like, what if you're just scraping off these females and it's making them break open and release these 100,000 eggs? That's
Yeah.
not even, that means it's not taking the natural cycle where some of them won't do it. It means you're forcing it to happen.
Right.
And that very well could be the
Yeah.
case.
You're
And
not do you're doing more bad than good at that point where they're just like,
Mhm.
just don't touch them because there's still more zebra mussels in the lake. You scrape off the one pole that you have there, and you're gonna get the whole neighborhood pregnant.
And the next thing you know, you have to take care of the neighbor's dog. You don't.
Right. There's just babies everywhere. You think it's bad now? Scrape off one pole. Next thing you know, all the other poles gonna just be multiplying like crazy. They're gonna be 4 times as thick. I don't
And
know
now
how
you're
fast
watching.
that happens, but obviously fast enough that if 89 was the year that they started, and now it's
Right.
bad enough to see pictures of just like everything in this lake is coated
Right.
completely. And it'll be like Mille Lacs too, where it's just like it is a massive lake and they're
Huge.
everywhere.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah,
dang,
I mean, and think about this, if they're riding the current, if there's 100 to 500,000 out of one, and they're riding a current, and while they're riding the current, they're called villagers. It's like villager, except for they're called a
oh,
villager, and they're microscopic, dude. You can't even fucking see them. That's why you have to drain your boat. They're literally releasing eggs you can't even see with your human eye. They grow shells. 2 or 3 weeks later, the swarm just attaches. There's local mussels in the way. You're fucked. Rocky beach area. Who cares? Your feet are fucked. Like,
dude. Yeah, your feet
you're
are fucked
just
for
like,
sure. That's another thing I've heard.
what's
That
that?
like all those little shells. make like what was a smooth rock is now like a textured like sharp rock. Like you can't walk on anything.
Yeah.
Everything
Yep.
is
That's
like
what I
poking
read
now.
too, is that, like, they basically if you had smooth, rocky areas, shit on those things, dude. You're not
Right.
walking on them. You're just
Nope.
not.
Gotta get you some fancy Sims boating, fishing shoes. You just stomp them all day. But
Stomp them all to hell. Uh, they
I wonder if
so,
that's even like if you could get in trouble for that. You
yeah,
can't be walking in the water there. You're stomping on all those zebra mussels. You got a permit for that? Yeah. I don't know.
Yep, that's a good question. I don't know. Um, what is what was your visual experience? Because I saw a bunch of different things, and mostly it was like these dark yellow lines with the white on them, but they were super zoomed in. Knowing what I know about their size, they were super zoomed in. I haven't had a super close up experience
Oh,
with them in person, and
yeah, they look like big, like what you would think of like a big like clam or like a mussel, but then just really little. Like,
really,
and there's so many of them. I didn't like really examine it. You pick up something that has them on them, and they're just like shoulder to shoulder all over the thing.
so yeah, I mean they bunch together.
Yeah, it
They're like
looks.
a crowd. They're just slammed
Yeah,
in.
and it doesn't like when you pick it up, it looks like a weird looking rock. And then when you look closer, you're just like, "Oh, it's like covered in
Whoa.
zebra mussels."
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
That is yeah, fucked. And that's how the local mussels get overwhelmed too, because 'cause they're just sitting there hanging
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Next thing you know, a zebra mussel swarm attaches to them and it fucking suffocates them essentially.
Yep.
Jesus. Were they
Yeah.
striped though when you saw them? Like, could you tell that they were striped?
Yeah, there's, like, little lines on them, but, like, I don't think when I saw them, it didn't stand out, you know? I think I
Yeah.
was more
Okay.
blown away at just what I was seeing and not
Like the
really
sheer
paying
number of
attention.
what
Yeah. To just be like, "No, they're just everywhere. This is gnarly." But
So, everybody's probably like, "Why the fuck are you talking about the zebra mussels? Is so boring." Well, they're a fucking pain in the ass, and I like to talk about invasive species and see if
Stop
Tim's had experience with them.
aquatic hitchhikers.
Aquatic hitchhikers, nice.
The
That's on the
side.
signs, right?
Yep, and they say it all over the place, yeah,
Yeah, here in
and I've
Minnesota.
yeah, and they have a lot of, like, DNR people in training or, like, other law enforcement people and stuff
Mhm.
that are doing that as volunteer work and stuff.
What
I
is
met
that?
one. I'm not gonna say her name on here because I don't know if she wants her name said, but
Right.
I met one at one of the boat landings, like, getting ready for our live, deal
Oh, yeah.
when we
That's
went
right.
live. I talked to her
Right.
for a
When we
while.
did live fishing and live video game, there's like 4 almost 4 hours over it. Go check out the YouTube channel.
Yeah, and then like, we talked for a while, and she followed us on Instagram and everything, so, yeah,
Nice.
she's super cool, and we just chatted about invasive species and stuff, and I learned a lot about how that works. Like, I was just like, "So you just have to sit out here all day?" And she's like, "It's not that bad, like, I get, paid and everything," and I think she's going to, like, regular law enforcement, like, I don't think she's
Oh,
studying to
no
be,
kidding.
like, a DNR officer. I think that's just one of her things where, she's like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
I'm just gonna, sit out here," and I
Volunteer
think it's
to enforce some
yeah,
laws.
and I don't know if that was even part of, like, school where she's getting credit or something, but she's getting paid still, it's like one of those,
Yeah.
"This is something I can put on my resume" deal.
Yeah, 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 right, for sure, but still getting paid. So, like, what exactly was she doing for this? Like, was she making sure people drain their boats, or, like, did you get
Yeah,
into
so
that?
they'll sit there, they sit there and they drain, they make sure that you drain your boats and that you're clean, and then they kinda, like, look at everything, to see if there's any weeds hanging off of stuff to make sure that you're not bringing anything in with you, and then they ask, like, "When's the last time this has been on a different lake?
Oh,
How
sure.
long do you plan on having it on here?" And all that good stuff.
Okay.
And then, obviously, with my weird little boat, it's more of a thing that's just like, "So you don't have to drain anything, and you don't have, like, a motor." So, like, I've never seen, that's what I get a lot. I
Sure,
have
sure.
never seen this, you're trying to launch the boat and people are just like, "What is this?"
What
And you're
is
just like,
that? Yeah.
It's a fishing vessel. I kinda gotta get on the water, Like,
Right, right.
can we not talk? That was a different situation, though, like, I was into talking to her, but there's been
Right,
other times
for sure.
where, like, random people come up and then they start talking to you about that and other things, and you're just like, "That's awesome, dude.
Right.
I really wanna go fishing right now."
Yeah.
You know?
You're like, "Sandra from accounting, I'm okay with this conversation not happening."
Right, right. This is like, "I'm totally cool with you coming up and saying cool or asking a question about the boat, but, like, I'm not here for a conversation. I am here to fish."
Yeah. So, you did your grandparents have stuff on Mille Lacs? Like, because these things get stuck in motors. Like, they'll
Yeah,
gunk up a motor. I'm just like, "Oh
yeah,
my god." Because they'll go in
yeah,
small, they'll latch on, and then they'll fucking get big, and you're screwed.
yep. Yeah, and, they
Dude,
will gunk up
so
motors
shitty.
and stuff, it's crazy. My grandparents did not. Honestly, for the life of me, no idea why they had a second trailer up there. Like, they didn't do anything on the water, like, I don't know, they just liked looking at the water,
They're just, like, sitting out in their rocking chairs and
Just yeah,
staring at a giant piece of water.
just being old people like, "Huh, a lot of boats out today." You know? I don't know.
Another pontoon.
Yep. Looks like
Yeah.
the launch is going out again. Wonder if they're catching any fish. And I think it was, like, part of the community too, like, they'd go down and have dinner out there, and it'd be different people, and I think they could, like, shoot the shit with the other people, you
Sure.
know?
Sure.
"You get out
Yeah.
fishing today? Oh, you catch some? Alright. Yep." And they wouldn't fish, they're just the people talking
Yeah.
shop for no reason.
Right, right, and they could be there. Yeah, they could be there and part of the conversation.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
for
So,
sure.
yeah, no, they my grandpa would walk along the lake. I got some cool lures that were old as shit, so who knows how long they were, like, hung up on whatever
Stuck.
they were hung up in Mille
Right.
Lacs
Yeah.
before they floated out, but he would just walk the shoreline and grab lures and then hand them to me every once in a while, so I got some cool old lures that have cool
Nice.
backstories of spending some time at the bottom of Lake Mille Lacs before eventually, you know,
Floating
letting
up to the
loose.
top or
Yeah.
making themselves onto the rocks or
Yep, yep,
whatever, right?
yep.
Sick, dude. Um, so just a quick few things to go over that I wanted to go over quick is drain, dry. They have all this, they had like this whole saying, but like draining and drying are pretty much the only things, dude. That be like there was in 2015,
Yeah,
Minnesota specifically did start trying to use some sort of it said pesticide, but I it it didn't necessarily say pesticide. The way I read it, it wasn't necessarily a pesticide. It was also like a chemical compound almost. Maybe I misinterpreted it, but pesticide was definitely on there. But um, because they are pests, I guess, right? But
yeah, I
anyways,
mean, I suppose pesticide could be a pretty broad term.
right. That's kind of what I was just like figuring out here in real terms or in real time. So yeah, I
Right,
think
right.
so. So in 2015, Minnesota did start a small like experimental program. There was no updates or anything on there that I saw on the website, but they basically were just like, no, prevention's the only thing you do. That's why I keep talking about the draining and that people, the sitting at the launches, making sure that you drain your boat and stuff like that. I didn't know this either, but like if you guys were going to move your dock to a nearby lake, like let's just say you got different land or something, or sold your dock or something like that, right?
Yep.
These things live for 5 days out of water and 21 days in the water. I mean, 21 days is the cycle of one. So it'll, let its eggs out and all that shit. You
Damn, dude.
have to
I didn't know
leave.
that.
Yeah.
Thing lives for 3 weeks,
Yeah.
goes through its whole that makes sense to how they reproduce and
Exactly.
replicate so fast.
Yeah. And they still can live for 5 days out of the water too.
Can
So
you
it's
imagine that?
efficient.
That's like a fourth of its life. It can
Right.
live out of the water. That'd be like us, what's an average? I don't know, maybe
Oh,
70,
right.
maybe we'll go 60 for easy math.
Sure.
I can live for 15 years underwater.
Right.
No.
With no food.
I can live for 60 years on dry land. I'll only make it about 15 years underwater though. What the
It's
hell?
fucking wild. So there's actually in Minnesota, there are actually rules and laws and whatever that say like if you are in a body of water that has them, they has to be out of, it has to be dry for this long before you can put it into the next body of water and stuff like that. When it comes to like docks
Yeah.
and stuff like that, I was like, yeah. So they're just really going hard on the prevention thing because nothing else so far is working because of
Yeah.
their rapid fucking reproductive rate. It's crazy.
Well, right. I mean, like, I don't know their whole reproductive system, but I'm assuming you need one male and one female, and that one male and one female can produce like
A hundred
three to
thousand.
five hundred of them in
Oh,
3 weeks.
3 to 500. No, dude.
What? How many eggs did you
One
say?
hundred to 500,000 eggs can be released. So even if you take
By
that down,
one?
yeah, by one
One.
female. So you think one
Ooh.
female zebra mussel is more than likely still getting 50 some thousand fertilized.
Oh, yeah, it was 50,000. So you got one couple goes in there and they have 50,000 babies. And then those 50,000
Yeah,
babies
exponential growth,
after,
dude.
so in a month and a
There's
half,
3 weeks.
because you got the first 3 weeks is the one
Oh, right.
has the
Yep.
50,000. And then in a
Good
month
point.
and a half, those 50,000 could also all have 50,000.
Yeah.
My,
Exponential growth, dude. Fuck.
f-
Right?
I just pictured it like them talking about their rank. Well, we decided to move to another lake, and you had 50,000 kids, and then my 50,000 kids each had 50,000 kids, and I couldn't tell you what they're all over the
I couldn't tell you Harry from Sally.
place. I haven't slept si- for as long as I can live out of water.
So
Oh
let's
man,
full on get into the fishing part of it. I know we've already talked about motors and live wells and stuff like just boats. We've already talked about the boat part, right? Like fishing
yep,
boats and stuff like that. And now I want to talk about the like the razor sharpness of them, right? The abundance of them. Is it
yes,
because they'll cut up your fucking feet? That's all there is to
yeah,
it. It based the articles, everything I read, it was like, oh yeah, it'll cut up your feet.
yep,
So isn't that gonna fuck up your fishing line too?
yeah, mm-hmm,
Like, do
yes.
they get? Is it bad? Can it be bad?
Yeah, you definitely have to have some abrasive stuff. Like if you're jigging or you're bouncing something on the bottoms, like if it goes down on the rocks, normally
Hmm.
you're only worrying about like your jig getting pinched between some rocks or whatever. But when you got the zebra mussels on it, it's just sharp. So you have to have some like good abrasive, fluorocarbon or whatever on there, and
Yeah.
probably some leader material because you can buy leader material that's more abrasive than the regular line, but it's more expensive. Like you would never put a whole spool of the leader material on because you're talking, you know, probably like $20 for like 50 yards,
Mm,
where normally you'd be putting, good line is like $20 or so for like
mhm.
150 to 200 yards.
Right.
So
Right.
you'd be talking like $80, and it'd be crazy. There's no
Right.
point in
Yeah.
it.
That's a
But
lot
yeah,
to spool up. A lot of money to be
yeah,
spooling on.
yeah. There's definitely things to think about. Um, I think that's probably a decent reason why a lot of people do like drop shot on Mille Lacs and stuff too,
Oh.
because the part that's down, touching all the sharp part, if it cuts it off, it's like not that big of a deal. Like I'm just losing the weight. I'm not losing my hook, you know? If a
Mm,
fish bit, I'm not worried about the part the line going from the hook to my reel is not
okay.
compromised, so I'm not nervous about losing a fish that way.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and if for anybody not aware, a drop shot is just like if you're going from the bottom up, it's a weight on the bottom. The line goes from the weight to the hook, and then the secondary line goes from the hook to your rod. And there's different hooks. You can
Mhm.
tie one knot that does the whole thing, or like VMC has what's called a spin shot, and it's
Okay.
literally got like two line ties, one on the top and one on the bottom of the hook,
Ah.
and then the hook itself can like free spin.
Oh,
And I like
nice.
those because it's nice to just be able to retie, whatever you want.
Sure.
If
Sure.
you're
And that's why the drop, the weight, it can get cut because it's its own
right, yeah, it's
separate
its own thing.
dangly line, and that's what's gonna hit the bottom. Well, the other
Yep.
part is that even though that's attached to it, it'll just snap the line a third of the way up or whatever.
Yeah.
The weight will go, the line's gonna get cut a third of the way up, and then you just reel up 2 pieces of
Right.
line,
Yeah.
essentially, right, without a
Exactly.
weight on it now.
Yep. Yep. And
That makes
plus,
sense.
like on a lake like that, because the zebra mussels, everything's so clear. Like leader material helps a lot too. Because if you're talking, you're using fluorocarbon leader material, fluorocarbon's almost invisible to fish. Whereas if you
Ah.
like using braided line to that fluorocarbon,
Mhm.
braided is not invisible whatsoever. So it's like if you
Right.
went, braided line down to like a swivel. So to a lot of people do that to minimize line ties. You can tie it straight on if you want, but or line twist. I think I said line ties. But if you
Okay.
put like a little swivel and then it goes down to your braided line, it depends on what you're, fishing with. This week I
Oh,
was
so
using a
I
jigging
okay,
wrap,
let
and
me
the way
say
you
that
pop
again.
it, it swims and it twists up your line, and line twist fucks it up bad.
Oh, yeah. But let me ask what so you're saying the line that comes off your reel
Yeah.
is on a swivel is connected to a swivel,
Yes.
and then you put leader line on that swivel,
Yes.
and that leader line is usually heavier duty or thinner in this case?
Well,
Because 'Cause we're talking
like
about zebra mussels
more
clearing up the
abrasive
water, right?
resistant. Yeah.
Say again?
More abrasive resistant. That's the
Oh,
big
okay.
part. That's the big key, because a lot of people will actually use a lighter leader material than their main line. Like if you're using braided,
Mhm.
because the diameter is thinner,
Yeah. Okay.
you can have way heavier test braided line that's the
Mm.
same thickness of your fluorocarbon leader.
Ah.
So you'll have really heavy line on the top, but a lot of people like to use the lighter leader material,
Mhm.
because then if you do get hung up on something, you're just snapping that leader material, and then you
Yep.
only have to retie onto that swivel instead of retying your whole line, like
Yeah.
retying the swivel on and then retying the thing onto the swivel. Like
Right.
if your leader material is lighter than your main line and you get hung up and you break it off, then you literally only have to retie some leader material onto your swivel and a new bait
Right.
onto that. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're saying this could be something in this super clear
oh
because that's
yeah,
what
for sure.
right, like, these things are there's so many of these goddamn zebra mussels, they're
Yeah.
filtering the water. Basically, it destroys local biological plant life as well
Yeah.
because they're just sucking all the plankton out of it, and that screws up the food web, and then, you don't get algae like you're used to, you don't
Right.
all that gets messed up. So, yeah, the water's way clearer, so when it comes to
Way.
fishing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You definitely like if you watch any of the pros fish any of those lakes where
Mhm,
they're fishing smallmouth, I think a
mhm.
lot of those lakes are zebra mussel lakes. I can't
Okay.
be for certain,
Sure,
but
okay.
a lot of those deep clear lakes are, I think a lot of times they are clear because of the zebra mussels. Like Mille Lacs is one, and some of
Mhm.
those other. And you watch the pros out there, a lot of those guys are fishing. It's like a spinning reel, and then they'll have the braided line that goes to the leader. material
Mm.
because
Mhm.
there's no stretch with the braid. So it like makes it sensitive and you can fish deeper and everything. I go straight fluoro most of the time. Um, just because I use my rods more multi-purpose than the
Oh, okay.
pros do because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have,
for
like
sure. They're
20
very
rods a
specific.
piece. So
Right.
I just keep it like full fluoro
Right.
and that's clear. And mono is clear too, but mono stretches. So that's
Okay.
why a lot of times they're using the fluorocarbon and it's not as abrasive resistant. Like
Yeah.
fluorocarbon is a very um like if you go and buy the thick leaders for like muskie and stuff,
Mhm.
like knowing it's going to be sharp ass teeth that you're dealing with.
Right, and that's why you get that
You
thicker.
can get steel leaders or they make thick fluorocarbon leaders. So you can get clear fluorocarbon leaders knowing that muskie's going to have some sharp teeth and he's going to bite your line.
Sure.
You can still handle it with the fluoro leaders, but those are heavy as hell. Like those are you wouldn't fish bass for those. Those are legit like a fiber optic cable. Like if you kink it once, it's fucked. It's never coming back to normal,
Oh, right. Yeah.
That
Right.
kind of thickness.
Right. That's
And I
crazy to
guess
think.
the little lines are kind of the same way, but
Yeah,
it's a lot harder to kink them because they're so little.
sure. And you fish in the lake you normally fish. It's naturally clear,
It's a pretty
right?
clear lake, yeah.
Like, you don't
It's
think
not
this
clear
is a
like zebra mussels because it's got like a lot of algae and stuff in
Oh,
it.
it does. Okay.
Yeah, but it's not. It's still a very clear lake.
Yeah.
But I don't know if like did you do research on what they eat on the
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
do they eat algae?
Yeah, they eat the plankton, actually.
Oh,
So
the plain
they
yeah,
they
so
just
they're
eat.
eating what the minnows eat.
Yeah, yeah, and they'll suck all of that plankton basically out of an area, so then it clears up the water so much that the algae won't even grow because
Yeah, see.
there's no other activity going on. They're the
Right.
bottom of the food chain, right? They're the
Yep.
food web. They just like and then the food web never even develops. They'll just suck it right out of the area, so then even the native, uh, plant life, the aquatic plants, they just won't even
Yeah.
they'll have to there's no way for them to adapt to the ultra clear water, right? Because it's not supposed to be that way. So it's totally changing the way they get sunlight and
Yeah.
everything like that. And that's why I was like, well, is that a bad thing for fishing? Kind of like what does that mean for the fishing? The like the way you fish it. I mean, obviously you went into the ways you fish it quite a bit, but like
Yeah, I mean, it just changes everything to your approach is different.
sure.
If
Yeah, we've
that
talked about
is
that. Yeah, I
causing
get what you're saying.
if that's not allowing like weed growth and stuff, then you got to know that you can't rely on trying to find weeds. You got to figure out what else a lot of times like fish they're in transition areas where like
Okay.
it might be
Yeah.
like a rocky bottom goes to weeds and then they're right there,
Right.
it's like in a lake where everything's super consistent because there's zebra mussels that have screwed up everything. So it's like the whole lake is covered in zebra mussels. So your whole lake is the same thing because
Just
the
super
zebra
clear.
mussels have made it that way.
Right.
I haven't fished lakes that have zebra mussels, like not
Mhm.
on my own like will, not like
Yeah,
I'm deciding where we go today. I've fished Mille Lacs before,
sure.
but it was on one of the launches, and I don't know if you're familiar with the launch. You go out to Mille Lacs, they have these big boats where they'll have, like 30 seats, and you literally just pay, and it's like a
Ah,
guide that brings you out, but
yeah,
it's like you and a bunch of other people just like, oh, I want to fish Mille Lacs
right.
today. So you fish almost like a ferry style boat that doesn't drive fast, and they just bring you out and
Yeah, I think we talked about those in our walleye episode way back in the day.
probably, yeah, I
But
think I've
yeah, yeah,
talked
for
about it
sure. You're
before.
just it's like a huge pontoon that you dangle a whole bunch of rods off the side in the middle of the night, and the
Middle of the
walleye
day.
come like crazy. They just bam, yeah, there you go. They pick it up. And so with that, you going back to even what you were talking about earlier in the podcast is like you're finding walleye, right? Like I wrote it down as a different topic. You're finding walleye. You know
Yep.
how to find them and stuff. Like you know how you have to find them on the lake. Um, do you know because it said muskies? I know you're a muskie hunter. You've been muskie. You got good muskie stories. It said like these visual predators
Yeah.
are likely to be benefiting actually from the zebra mussels. And you're
Hmm.
saying, well, I'm finding walleye, but maybe the northerns are eating them. You live on a naturally clear lake. Maybe you have sort of situation. I don't remember if walleye see really well, but you kind of get where I'm going.
They
I mean,
do.
I know I'm not setting you up here with like a and then, but I just wanted to lay out a whole bunch of stuff and see where your mind went.
Yeah. I mean, my thought is possibly because they have this limit of northern and they want to make it more of like a trophy northern lake, that the northern are getting big enough that
Mhm.
that's what the problem is on the lake. That the
On your
bigger
lake,
northerns,
right?
yeah, that
Even
the
though it's
bigger
not a zebra
northerns,
mussel, it's still clear. So, okay.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
so it's still clear. And I think the bigger northerns are maybe just picking off some of like the eater size walleyes.
Okay.
And I think there might be some big walleyes out there, and there's some little walleyes, and they're not getting much in between. I think the little walleyes aren't growing to be. The pike seem to be a little bit of a problem. I catch way too many pike, and I think the pike might be eating the smaller walleye as they're trying to grow up
Sure. Mhm.
and just not making it to that size. So
Yeah.
I don't think it has anything to do with the water clarity because the water's always been that clear. And maybe it's just a cycle, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
I heard that walleye fishing on this lake was pretty good at once, like once upon a time.
Mhm.
And I've never had like stellar fishing days. I
When
think
going for
I
walleye specifically.
Yeah, I think I got my
Yeah.
limit one time going out there.
Yeah.
I catch a
Uh,
lot of fish, just not a lot of eater walleyes. Like I'll catch
yeah.
some little ones, I've caught some big ones, and then you catch like, a good day is like 4 or 5. Well, the limit was 5. So a good day most of the time was like 3 or 4 walleye, but
Yeah.
then you'd also catch like 30 bass and 2 northern and, like
Yeah,
where you're
yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
for sure,
I
for
was
sure.
killing them. I just only caught like 4 of the fish I was trying to catch.
Yeah. Well, it makes me
So,
wonder, like, everything you're saying just brings me back to what you've been saying about Mille Lacs, and it makes me like, I just want to. I wonder if anybody knows the answer, and if you listeners, if you know if you have a zebra mussel lake and where you're fishing, leave it in the comments and let me know. But it makes me wonder because specifically Mille Lacs has had a walleye problem lately, and I don't know, but I'm wondering if the clear water on a body of water that big has made the northerns and the muskies just so much better now that the zebra mussels have cleared things up, that the walleyes are suffering at the hands of the benefit of the pike and the muskies on Mille Lacs, and now the commercial people are up there struggling. Like, it kinda
yeah.
makes you go like, "Well, I don't know. I didn't read any of this, but
Yeah.
this is just us here at the end sort of spitballing fishing talk here
Well,
related
and
to zebra mussels."
it's a possibility too because I think like the state record in muskie has been broken a couple of times and it's been on Mille Lacs, and it's like
Yeah,
the
see?
state record
Ooh.
gets broken, and then there was some native people that were up there that netted one that would have been the new state record, but
Oh,
you
yeah, we
can't.
talked about that in our muskie episode for
Yeah.
sure. I remember
Yep.
that. That's way too familiar.
Yep. And then there was another guy like after that that actually went and caught the record. So maybe they are just hammering all these other fish and stuff. So they are out there just chomping up, they're probably eating small northerns too. So it's nothing but the big guys left. The big
Yeah.
northerns and muskies eat small northerns.
Oh, sure.
And
They eat their own type. Yeah.
yeah, muskies
Animals
grow a lot faster from than northerns do.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like northerns take I think I heard about it one time. It was like something where like muskies grow from like little to like 40 inches relatively fast.
Oh,
But then like 40 to like 50, it takes quite a while.
for sure, sure.
Where I think northerns are. a little bit more like the other way. And this could be 100% false. I just heard about this one time. I might be wrong, but
Sure.
I thought it was like northerns take a little bit to get bigger, but once they're
Sure.
big, like it goes fast because they have
Mhm.
like a ferocious appetite. So
Oh,
that
right.
takes them a little bit to get growing, and then once they get growing, that
They start eating fucking
20-pound
everything.
fish is eating 10-pound fish, and
Right,
it's like that
right.
like that. Oh, what is that? There's a game, Slither, where you're going around and you're just like killing it's you move around as like a snake, and when you take out the other snakes, then you get bigger, and your whole thing is like you just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger,
Really?
and
Huh.
yeah.
I've never heard of this game. That's a fucking cool game.
Yeah, it's
Sounds
kind of,
sweet,
yeah,
dude.
it is pretty cool. Like you can't your head can't hit your tail or you die. And
Oh, you're
it
just talking about Snake, like the old cell phone game?
I think so. Like where
Damn, dude, I just had a great
you got
idea
to
for a
try to
battle
cut
royale that
off.
unfolded in my head right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
know.
it's
Anybody you
I,
can make this game, I don't care. It's not I'm not gonna make it.
I think it's
But
the
think
same
about it,
thing,
you're
isn't
all
it?
the same size snake and there's 200 of you on a map, and then as you
Yeah.
eat more, you get bigger, and then eventually at the end there's just gonna be two big fucking snakes having to battle
Oh,
each
that's
other
what it
out.
is. That's what it is basically.
What?
Cuz it's you and
Okay,
you
I thought you
can't.
were talking about the cell phone
Well,
game
no.
Snake where when you eat a dot, your tail gets longer and you can't bump into your own
Oh,
tail.
no, no, it's like a battle royale against a bunch of other people, and you're going, and your job is to try to cut them off and to get them to run into your body. As long if
Oh,
your head hits their body, they take you out, even if you're massive. If
okay,
you're massive and that little one cuts you off and your head hits their body,
okay.
you disappear into the
You're done.
dots. And then it is like the snake. They disappear into dots, and then you quick circle back and try to eat up all their dots, and that makes you bigger. So
That
like
game sounds fucking sweet, dude.
it is pretty cool. I played quite a bit until eventually you just like get sick of it
You've
because
had enough of it. Sure,
every once in a while it doesn't work perfect either. You know,
sure.
I try to turn, fucker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just like Mario, dude. I jumped every time. I hit jump every time.
yeah.
Bitch fell
I
down the
hit
hole on his
jump.
own.
I fast ran. I hit the A or whatever. I was
Right,
fast running.
right.
You run slow, and all of a sudden I just go boom into the hole. Not cool. I hit the fast run. You know
I
I hit the fast run.
I know I did.
Oh
So,
yeah, man.
anyways, we went a little long in the intro, so I'm just gonna cut this one off at this so we don't get into the 2 hour long-ish podcast. If this is your first time, we do the first half fishing, fishing news, all this other stuff. We try to go about an hour or 45 minutes on that one. Then we cut over to the random take. Been trying to cut that one down to about a half an hour. We still go along sometimes on the 2 hours, but there are plenty of episodes. We now officially have a year's worth of podcasts as of last week with the bass episode, Tim, because
That's
52
right.
weeks in a year,
Oh
52.
yeah.
Hell yeah. This is episode
52
53. So
pickup.
we're officially starting our next chapter as far as numbers go. We
Welcome
didn't
to
do
year
anything different though.
2. No. Dude,
So,
you know what?
anyways,
I was gonna say one more thing about the
oh,
fishing. You know what I
please.
did find? So I've been using this jig and wrap, playing with this jig and wrap. If you
Okay.
guys aren't on this jig and wrap, go get you a jig and wrap. Like the ice fishing jig and wrap. Hook in the front, hook in the back, treble hook on the bottom, using a number 7 jig and wrap. I've been playing with this a lot. Oh my gosh, it's so much more versatile than I thought it was. We can get into that at a different time. But I was out just messing with the depth finder, not the new one. The new one, I couldn't find a suction cup to put the transducer on my dad's boat.
Mm.
So that
So if
didn't
you're not
happen
familiar
this
with that
week.
one, go back to episode
Yeah,
51.
because I got a
Tim
new
talked
depth
about when
finder.
he got a big purchase and he's excited about it.
Yep.
We're going to get into it when we
Still
do our
haven't
fishing catch
used
up
it
for the
yet.
year, but
Yeah, still haven't used it yet, but I will soon. But this last weekend didn't get a chance to, but I was using his depth finder, which is just a standard like down imaging, and he doesn't have a GPS or nothing. So I'm just kind of driving around and I'm looking, and I was like, I saw stuff deeper these other weeks, and I just like, I got time. I just want to play around with this, and I'm going around, and I'm like, I'm seeing stuff deep, and I'm like, this is
Mhm, mhm.
nuts. And I'm driving around, and I saw some more stuff, and I got this jigging wrap, and I'm like, this is perfect. I know there's not weeds this far down. I'm dropping it down. I'm just gonna work this fast, and we're gonna move it. And all of a sudden, I catch a fish, and I'm like, no way. Like, I gotta get this in because I gotta know what's down here. And I
Okay.
get it up, and it's a pretty decent sized crappie, and I caught it in 38 feet of water.
Whoa!
Yeah, dude. I
Dude!
didn't know. And now, like, it solves so many other mysteries. Like, I'm sure if there's seasoned fishermen out here, they're just like, no shit. But it's like, I didn't know this about this lake because I've been out here and I've been playing with stuff. But in
Right.
38 feet of water, when this lake, the deepest part, the deepest, there's only one hole that goes that deep, is 60 feet. So we're not that much further off
Damn,
than like
dude.
the deepest water in this lake.
Right.
And that crappie was out there. And the craziest part was like, I know crappies suspend sometimes. I caught this thing off the bottom. It was on the bottom in 38 feet of water.
What the heck?
I dropped that jigging wrap all the way down to the bottom, and I was
Sure.
ripping it up only like 2 feet off the bottom, maybe 3 feet off the bottom, but I'm ripping it up 3 feet off the bottom.
Wow.
And I couldn't,
And that
that's
thing
why I
just
didn't know
hammered
what
it,
it
huh?
was. Yeah, that's why I didn't know what it was, because when you see crappies a lot, they're kind of like staggered and they're
Yeah,
suspending.
and there's
I
like
didn't know it
10
would
or
be on the
12
bottom
or
in 38
5
feet
or
of water. Yeah, couldn't believe it. And there was a
Wow.
bunch of them. And I don't have like new, nice, fancy technology. So when I ran back to like turn on the live well, like, I'm keeping this, I lost the spot.
Ah,
And because they just kind of move around. So I was trying to find the spot again, and I couldn't get back on them. And
right.
it was almost supper time too, so I didn't get a chance to like play out there much. It was like mid afternoon
Sure.
and a lot of boat traffic. So that was
Yeah.
another thing,
Yeah.
like crazy boat traffic. Like it's known for like recreational stuff. There was some wakeboard boats making the biggest waves I've ever seen. They were like, there was people out there surfing like behind the boat, like where they were legitimately, like they got the towing rope and then they toss the rope. It's making big enough waves that they're just surfing.
Holy crap. Back
Yeah.
that far that they got a
I'm,
rope? Because I know
huh?
wake skating, but that's not what you're talking about.
No, it's like the
Like
the
wake
wakeboard.
surfing.
Yeah, the wake surfing, like the boat makes a big enough wave right
Oh,
behind the
yeah.
boat
Oh,
that
no, I
you
know
just
wake
toss it.
surfing. Yeah. That's usually right
Yeah.
off the back of the boat.
Oh,
Anyways,
it was for
okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Nothing
just
fucking huge.
massive waves,
Yeah.
massive.
All right.
And that's what I got everywhere. And yeah, just anyways, that I had to throw that out there, like
Just had to
new
get it out there.
territory, new ground, catching new stuff.
Yeah.
I'm
Doing new
sure
stuff.
other people are just like, oh, yeah, we knew that or whatever, but I didn't. I figured it out. Always learning new stuff.
Hell yeah.
And that was
I love
exciting
it.
for me. And then I know now too, where you're just like, oh, there's only one certain time of night where I can catch crappie on this weed edge. It's because they're out in 38 feet of water. And then when the sun goes down, they come in. So now I
Right.
know, like, well, because they're not here. That's why I can't catch them until night. They move
Right.
in from way out there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Crazy,
that
dude.
was exciting to know because
Crazy.
yeah, there's a lot of literature out there for bass and for walleye and stuff. Crappies are not so much. Everything that you read, they're like, oh, they're kind of just out there. You got to find them, and you're like,
Just gotta find them and drop a bobber on
I
top of them.
guess, and that's what I did.
That's awesome, dude. All right. Nice little side. We'll get into that stuff actually when we do our fishing goals and stuff like that. We're going to do a
Yes.
catch up before the season ends. Right now, summer's just barely sort of come to an end here. That's what Labor Day weekend is in Minnesota. So there's definitely still time to get out there, make stories. We'll catch up on those later. For now, we are going to jump into the random take where we're just going to talk about upcoming football season because I saw a crazy photo and I'm going to
Ooh,
send it to Tim. We're going to
I'm ready.
react and we're going to go with that. I guarantee we get a half an hour out of that because just you'll see why. Whatever. That's the fishing topic. Hit the random take.
Foosball.